I will lead. Well, welcome in to our biannual NFL special edition of Home Field Advantage. I'm Will Highland with Cam Chiesa and Kyle Diezel. Happy to be with you to start 2025 again. Um, it's our favorite time of the year, I'd say, for the three of us on this program. Those of you who have been listeners in the past know that we like to do this twice a year. We do the September show, the January show, and oftentimes some shows in between to discuss the NFL specifically, where we were right and where we were wrong. And so with that, and with all that we have to cover, I'm gonna jump right into it, boys. And first of all, Kyle, we need a weather report.
Well, here in Boston, it's been bitter cold, single digits here almost. At
Mhm.
like 28, 30 mile per hour winds here. It
Okay.
sucks.
All
Post
right.
tomorrow, but highly doubt it. That's
All
the
right. Okay. Well, see, whenever we do odd man rush or home field advantage, we have to check in with Kyle and see when it's going to snow in Boston, or what the weather's like. So now we've got that out of the way, we can talk about the storm, and the terrible picks, that rained down from the heavens, in September when we discussed this on Labor Day weekend. I have it in front of me. Those of you watching the video feed will know that it is real. I'm not making this up. We wrote this down. And so we're going to do this a little bit different. So we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to jump into the wild card weekend and make our NFL picks for the rest of the playoffs. But these are the picks that we had to begin the year. Cam, do you have any final words before I embarrass us here?
I am so sorry, the lovely citizens of Minnesota. That's all I can say. I'll
All
leave
right.
it there.
Well, we'll get to that. Okay, so we're gonna start in the NFC, Cam, since you brought that up, and Kyle supports an NFC team as well, so that will help with diving into that. Um, so in the NFC, Kyle had the Eagles as the one seed, followed by the Lions, the Rams, the Buccaneers, which I believe he was the only one to get all four division winners correct. Um, so Kyle, you did very well there. Then you had the 49ers as a five, the Packers as a six, and the Cowboys as a seven. So you didn't have any placement correct, but you did have in terms of seeding, but you did have all four division winners just in different order than what actually happened. Because what actually happened, we'll get to in a minute. Um, Cam, you had the 49ers as the one seed. They didn't make the playoffs. You had the Packers as the two. They're actually the seven. You had the Cowboys as the three. They didn't make the playoffs. The Buccaneers as the four. They did win their division. The Rams as the five. The Lions as the six, and the Eagles as the seven. So you also had five out of the seven teams. You and Kyle had the same amount of teams, but just you didn't pick the division winners properly, as Kyle did. I had the same teams as you guys as well in a different order. However, the weird thing is we all kind of had different mix. I had the 49ers at one. I was wrong. They didn't make the playoffs. I had Detroit at two. Detroit was really at one. We both had Detroit at two, Cam. Or Diesel, you and I both had Detroit at two. I had the Buccaneers at three. That's actually where they ended up. I had the Eagles at four. I had the Rams at five. I had the Cowboys at six, and they didn't make the playoffs. Then I had the Packers at seven, and that's actually what the Packers did. So we all kind of had varying degrees of success and failure there. Um, Cam had the Packers hosting the Lions in the NFC title game. That could still happen. So you're the only one that still has your NFC title game intact because both Diesel and I had Rams and 49ers. And of course, the 49ers didn't make it. So again, varying degrees. We all had things that were right and wrong. Cam, I'll start with you before we move on. What do you think? What do you think really played out in the NFC this year?
Well, A lot of injuries. Obviously, on this program, I've been a big 49ers supporter of what they've done over the last few years, and it didn't work out. Purdy was not able to carry. He had his own injury issues. Obviously, McCaffrey. Defensively, they had problems. So that was a big focal point of my issues. And then not seeing the resurgence of Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings. I think nobody really saw that. That was something we really missed. And then I underestimated the Lions' abilities. Those are three things that really stuck out for me in my picks.
Kyle, what about you? Did you see anything? I mean, because you were spot on with the division winners. You just sort of in the seeding order, they came out a little bit differently, not too much. You just had them each swapped. You had 1 and 2 swapped, and then 3 and 4 swapped. But you were pretty spot on with your division winners. Um, what do you think is the reason why the Rams ended up winning the division over any of those other challengers?
I mean, like what Cam said, it's injuries played a factor for the Niners, and you saw toward the end of the season here that even played with injuries that they were just a frustrated team in general. It's been a frustrating year for them in general. The Seahawks, they just don't have a defense. They don't have an offense. They have no idea what's going on over there. I call DK Metcalf still the big baby down there over there in Seattle. Like he's not, to be honest, I don't think he's the guy there. Like there's literally no true leadership there in Seattle. And the Cardinals are the Cardinals. Like, Call of Duty came out and you saw the Cardinals suck because Kyler Murray is playing it. So that's that division right there. And Sean McVay's proven in 2 years in a row, starting 1-4, he can still make the playoffs. And with a team of a bunch of nobodies and without Aaron Donald, I think this team is very underestimated for what Snead and McVay have done at researching this team, proving kind of like what Bill Belichick did, bringing in players that fit the system well and developing well. And I'm hoping we see that more often, but I think it's finding that good coach.
Right, and I think the Rams are probably the most dangerous team in the NFC at this point because every Detroit's going to get everyone's best game. Everybody knows at this point to Cam's um, point that the Lions they can't be underestimated anymore because they're so much there's so much a target for everyone else now based on the regular season they had and the success of guys like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn who are getting head coaching interviews, and Dan Campbell is the darling of the NFL from a coaching standpoint this year. So like they're going to get everyone's best game and they have home field advantage. They're going to get everyone's shot. But the Rams, that game last year in in was that was in Detroit, that wild card game. That was not a blowout. So if you end up with those two playing one another in the title game, um I mean I don't know who I'd pick in that game. So that's something to be said about the Rams. And for those of you at home, um, we're gonna get to this, of course, but the true order was the Lions and the Eagles, followed by the Buccaneers and the Rams, and then the wild cards being the Vikings, who Cam talked about making a big splash, and then the Commanders, followed by the Packers. So let's talk about the Commanders for a second before we move on to the AFC, because I think outside of what we've already talked about with San Francisco's decline due to injury, the other big story in the NFC was Washington's rise. So Cam, what do you think is the biggest reason why the Commanders ended up where they are heading into Wild Card Weekend?
I really think the Commanders rose to the level of their head coach and the leadership of their young quarterback, Jaden Daniels. We talked about this class coming in, this quarterback class. I was very critical of it. Jaden Daniels, from a leadership and maturity standpoint at his age, is well beyond his years, and it showed in the play on the field this year. I saw a very hungry group offensively that really overachieved. Really thought that the passing game was solid. The running game was better than expected. Overall, I think the entire unit overachieved in general. And defensively, they were not a top 5 group at all, but they were kind of like a bend but don't break group. They'd give up a lot of yardage, but I remember games like against the New York Giants, they gave up 6 field goals. They gave up a lot of field goals. They really did not give up a lot of touchdowns. And obviously, they found a magical play in Chicago against Chicago, excuse me. So I just feel like this is a team that really played above their level a little bit. They played up to the leadership of their head coach and young quarterback and took advantage of a division that we originally thought was going to be excellent, but with Dallas's struggles, and Philly was great, but Philly had some cracks in the armor with injuries to Hurts and some issues of their own. So I really, and the Giants' complete incompetence as well. So they really took advantage of those divisional games that haven't been there in the past for them and really just rose above. So I think it was a fun story and a group that's ahead of schedule a little bit.
I agree. I think their game right before Christmas against the Eagles was great, was a signature win for them. And I think the way Jaden has played with veteran receivers around him, like Crowder and McLaurin, look like the Crowder and McLaurin of 2019 or 2018. And that's great for him to have. Imagine that, everybody. Surrounding your young quarterback with veteran receivers is a smart move. That's what, if you remember, that's what Dak had with Des Bryant, when he had a successful year as a rookie in 2016. So, or Jason Witten. So those are smart things to do when you have a young quarterback, and that's what the Commanders did. I mean, in the leadership of their head coach Dan Quinn. Um, I mean, I forgot who he was at the beginning of the season. You could go back and listen to that episode. He might be a coach of the year candidate. Um, Kyle, any thoughts on the NFC East and the Commanders and how they found themselves in this playoff mix?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Cam. It's great coaching, great leadership overall. But I also look at their strength of schedule. They had a pretty soft schedule, to be honest. I think right in their total schedule, they played maybe for the three playoff teams, being the Eagles, Bucks, and the Ravens. I think the next two closest were the Falcons and the Bengals. So still very weak schedule, but I'm still giving credit. Like Jalen's been great. My question then is for next year, can he duplicate this again? Because we've seen the last few years. Sophomore year has been a huge struggle. Look at Stroud down in
Yeah.
Texas. He's had a huge issue this year. So great for them. Hopefully they can continue this going through the playoffs. I'm just worried about experience going into the playoffs for them.
Yes, yes, and experience matters in the playoffs, and they are young. I think they're around to stay, which is bad news if you're an Eagles fan. Um, by the way, can you guys hear me okay? My microphone's way over here.
Yeah, I
All right,
got you.
all right. Um, Yeah, bad news if you're an Eagles fan, and you thought, oh, Dallas is dropping. Maybe this will be our year or our division for years to come because we've got the young, sexy quarterback, and they do when he's on the field. But the issue is Washington might have the same thing. All right, speaking of sexy quarterbacks and experience, the AFC has been dominated by that for years. Starting with Brady and Manning, and then you ended up now in this Mahomes Allen run conference. And before I go into the review, I think one of the things we all got wrong in the AFC was we didn't expect a lot out of the Bills. None of us had the Bills in the playoffs. And I think one of the reasons why is we expected Josh Allen to show signs of age, which is weird for somebody who's not 30, but the amount of miles on his engine there's been a lot of them. We expected to see a little bit of that. Instead, we saw, I think, a Josh Allen that resembles more of 21 or 2020 rather than, 2019. And so that was something we got wrong. But just to go through this real quick for you guys, start with Diesel again. Diesel had the Texans at number one, followed by the Chiefs, the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Browns, the Jets, and the Colts. So Kyle nailed the NFC. His AFC is, unfortunately for you, pal, a little bit of hot garbage. Cam, correctly predicted the Chiefs as the one seed and the Ravens as the three, with the Texans in between. Texans actually turned out to be the four. But he had the Jets as the four. Then he had the Dolphins, neither made the playoffs, followed by the Browns, who didn't make the playoffs. But you did have the Chargers. We were all right about expecting, or I think we all expected the Chargers to make a push, but only you and I had them in the playoffs. And then I had the Chiefs at 1, followed by the Dolphins. I also thought we were gonna get more out of Miami. I had Texans at 3. I had Bengals at 4. Cincinnati took a step back. I thought they were gonna take a step forward with hopefully a healthy Burrow. He played great. He wasn't the issue. The Chargers at 5, which is where they ended up, and then the Ravens at 6 and the Steelers at 7. Ironically, those two teams are playing each other. I was high on the AFC North. That turned out to be true. I thought you were going to get 3 teams making the playoffs out of that division. You almost did. The Bengals couldn't get it done. But one of the stories in the AFC, we can talk about the Bills, we can talk about the Chiefs' continued dominance. But I think one of the things about the AFC this year was that Houston, I don't think quite lived up to expectations as much as I think people were really looking for them to become the next, team that challenges Kansas City, and that could still happen, but maybe we were a little premature on that. What do you guys think? Cam, want to start?
Yeah, I'd love to dive into that. So I think Diesel alluded to it earlier. The classic sophomore slump from C.J. Stroud, but I don't think it's just him. I think the entire unit struggled heavily offensively, from the skill position, the offensive line. It was a group to me that was complacent throughout the year. I feel they played down to the competition. I feel like they knew that they were an extremely weak division this year. And there was a lot of comfort in the fact that if you look throughout the entire season, they really weren't in danger of missing the playoffs or losing that division, really from November on, in my opinion. I never personally felt they were in jeopardy of losing the division, regardless of what was going on with Jacksonville's issues, Indianapolis injury issues, and et cetera. And Tennessee, obviously, being in complete dumpster fire mode. So I feel like there was a lot of complacency, issues with Joe Mixon being healthy. When Mixon's healthy, he's great, but he's had health issues his entire career. And then the Stephon Diggs impact, which there's a reason he was gone from Buffalo. If you can't get along with Josh Allen, I think Josh Allen comes out of this whole situation looking better than he previously did, because Diggs really did not have the impact that he was said to have with Houston. I feel like to me, that's the most unstated issue with that offense. They gave up a lot for Diggs, and he was supposed to come in there and be a number one. And really, it was Nico Collins. When he was healthy, he was the number one. And Diggs, I think it's safe to say Diggs is not that guy as a number one receiver in the league anymore. So I'm curious what you guys think about that.
Kyle, what do you think about the AFC and how it shook out? The Texans, you had them as their 1 seed. They ended up, they still winning their division, making the playoffs. But elsewhere, the Bills ended up being again um, near the top, and you had the Ravens
Mm-hmm.
being at the top again. What do you think about the outlook of the AFC this year and where Houston did or didn't play into that?
I mean, Houston, I had them as number one because, like Cam said, based on the strength of schedule. I thought from what we saw last year, that's the only reason why. But they proved me wrong. But Stroud had no offensive line. I think the other issue is, Cam, I don't think Diggs was a problem. He did get hurt halfway through the season, which also did not help them at all. But they just didn't look like a whole team. Like, they just put people together. It just didn't work out. Like, they had Dalton Schultz. Like, their offense was supposed to be on fire. Did not align that way. Same with Miami. Just did not align. Buffalo kind of did what the Rams did. We're bringing in these new young talents, and they're gelling with Josh Allen. I think we're starting to see it's about finding that quarterback that can find the right chemistry to get the offense going. And it's not as easy as it looks. Like, it's very tough. But for the AFC, I am concerned about the Chiefs just because I don't understand the stats and everything, but they're the only team this year to not score 30 points and still have a winning record. The other 3 teams were 4-13. I don't know how they can carry on forward, but they also have the easiest path to get back to the Super Bowl. The reason why I say that is because if the Ravens and both the Bills win, they will have to play each other before the Chiefs have to. The Chiefs will have to go through probably the Texans, wash over. They're literally sitting on a 2-week bye, but they also play their starters in 3 weeks. So that's my concern Are they feeling ready and rested? But I feel like a warm-up game against the Texans, it's totally fine. That's all they need.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Chiefs because we're not going to talk about them in the wild card discussion that we're about to have because they're headed into a
I mean, just to say it will. It's going to really come down to these three teams for the AFC. And I
so
don't think anyone else is taking it from them.
well, okay, yeah, let's you're absolutely right. And I want to unravel this and Cam, I want to hear your thoughts too because they're not involved in the wild card discussion that we're about to have because they get a bye. And part of the reason they got a bye is because they won a lot of close games as they have for the last 6 years. They win a lot of close games. And in fact, I think they won at least 11 or 12 one possession games out of their 16 or 17 wins. How many wins did they get? 16?
Yeah.
16 and 1? Yeah.
15 and
Or
2
no,
this year.
oh, you're right. They did lose
The
to Denver.
Broncos
Yeah, they
wrestling
did.
game.
Okay, so 15 and 2.
Yeah.
And I think must have had at least 11 and 12 close wins. But to Kyle's point, Cam, what do you think about the Chiefs and their road?
Well, I'll take a little different approach to that. And with the Chiefs, and this may sound counterintuitive, but I'm actually more confident in Kansas City than I have been in previous years due to the fact that we don't have a Joe Burrow in the playoffs. It seems like the Ravens and Bills will have to beat each other up, right, for the right to face the Chiefs. But let's talk about the real unsung hero of this Chiefs football team this year, and it's Steve Spagnuolo and that defensive unit. I'm not sure, and maybe I'm missing something, but why isn't Spags getting phone calls about head coaching interviews after the performance I saw from this unit this year?
And
With the
last year.
exception of and last year, but this year, I mean, they're a group that's carrying them to wins. We talked about Mahomes, and he deserves all the credit and love in the world, but that defensive unit's why they won football games this year. How many clutch stops did they get? We're talking about a group that shined. And besides Chris Jones, who individually on that unit sticks out to you? For me, it's Chris Jones and the rest of the guys. So I think it's a testament to that program and that unit that Spags has created. So, Diezel, I'm actually building off your point about the path. I'm actually more confident in Kansas City because they don't need Mahomes to throw for 304 touchdowns.
No.
They're not going to need that. With this unit, they're going to be in good shape, in my opinion.
They're going to be well capable, put it that way, or for the AFC Championship game.
And with the ability to pass rush when they're in the lead, when other teams have to pass, that plays right into Chris Jones' strength and the rest of that defensive line. And with a very improved secondary this year,
here's
maybe one of the better secondaries in the Mahomes.
Yeah,
era,
their secondaries.
Great. You have to
it's great.
Battle each other out. Like it's going to be a hard-nosed game. The Chiefs are just sitting back and relax. Like, okay, we got.
So Kyle, why? So if you're less, and I agree with you, both of you. But Kyle, why would that make the Chiefs? Why are you worried about them? Because you don't think they're going to be battle tested in the Super Bowl?
Because they have so much time off right now. I'm worried.
Okay, gotcha. All right. No, I mean, I see.
Yeah, but you're missing one key point, though, Diezel. You're missing one point about that game. You're assuming it's going to be Houston facing them. I think it's an extremely bold assumption, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say.
I think that's bold. Yeah.
That's the only.
Sorry, Will, go ahead.
Kyle, no, totally fine. That's the only thing I disagree with Kyle on.
Are the Steelers?
But the Chargers are going to go play the Texans, and I think the Chargers are going to win that game. So
I agree, big time.
So that makes the Chargers as a 5. And let's say the Bills take care of business; they're the 2. And let's say the Ravens take care of business against the Steelers, which I'm not going to tease. We'll get to that in a second. Then the Chiefs are going to have to host a division rival. I mean, I've seen that as a Pats fan. The Jets came into town and we weren't ready. We were on a bye, to Kyle's point. We hadn't played a real game. We had wrapped up the division in, Halloween, and we hadn't played a real game, and the 2010 Patriots were not battle tested. And the Jets came in with a, electric rod of a new head coach, a lot like the Chargers have, and they blew our doors off from the physical standpoint in 2010. So we saw the Ravens do that with the other Harbaugh brother a handful of times. So I think it's and by the way, today's the 10-year anniversary of that the Julian Edelman double pass game, which is crazy. But those Ravens teams, I mean, those John Harbaugh teams, that's what this Jim Harbaugh team reminds me of. So I would not be surprised if it's the Chargers going to Arrowhead in 2 weeks. But I don't know, guys. You wanted to let's dive into the AFC games because I know
I'm ready. I'm ready to
Kyle's got
dive
to
into
get
this.
out of here. But let's dive in. So I kind of just buried the lead. We were talking about the Texans and Chargers, which is it's a great segue, guys. It is the first game on the schedule. I like, for all those reasons I just talked about, despite what I've said about the San Diego LA Chargers, I like him in this game. Who do you guys like in this game?
I have the Chargers here because Will, we have that famous line from you, but that's over. With Jim Harbaugh here, this football team is well balanced. They're together. They're improved discipline wise. They're everything that Brandon Staley wasn't. Jim Harbaugh's a championship winning football coach, and that will help them get over the hump and win this game on the road.
And they have a great running game.
They do. J.K. Dobbins has had a resurrection this year. He's been incredible. I think they're going to football game going away.
Diesel, what do you think?
I go Chargers too. For some reason, I was thinking Steelers were playing the Texans. I have no
Got
idea.
it.
It's been a long week. Put it that way.
It's
But
all right. Well, yeah,
Chargers,
and
better team going right now into the playoffs. Out of the two teams, I definitely momentum carries in the playoffs. 100% is the Chargers.
yeah, and to be fair to you, your point is still true. If if the Chiefs can end up with the Texans, and if you had assumed that the Ravens would beat the Chargers, which is, fair, that would have been fun. Harbaugh's in the playoffs. That could still happen. Although we've seen that before. They met in the Super Bowl. They that still would have been true. But yeah, I think we're all in agreement that Houston, good story, good like CJ Stroud. I like their coach, I like their quarterback. Nice team. I'm happy for that fan base, relatively new to the NFL over the last century or so, 25 years. Um, and so it's good that they're relevant, you know, in the league. But I think we're all in agreement that the Chargers, I think, are the better team. Cam, can you do me a favor? Who's up next on the schedule?
We have the Baltimore and Pittsburgh fun divisional matchup again. 8
Okay,
o'clock tomorrow.
so this is interesting. What do you guys think about what do you guys think about this matchup? Because I'm gonna let you go first, because I think I might surprise you guys.
This is a tough one. And this plays into, you have to, this is facing your absolute bitter division rival for the third time. The Ravens here are very favored. I think for everything I talked about with Mike Tomlin to me, you could argue is the best football coach of the National Football League for what he does year in and year out with the roster that he has, for the consistency. With all that being said, Lamar Jackson has really quieted me over the last 2-3 seasons with his performance and the entire Baltimore group. With Isaiah Likely's incredible season at the tight end position, forming a nice duo with Mark Andrews, the offensive line being great, their defense being solid. I have Baltimore winning this game. They're at home. I think Lamar's got the playoff jitters out. He's addressed that publicly. So I'm going with Baltimore here.
Um, I like where your head's at, but we'll get to that. Kyle.
No, I agree with all Cam said. I mean, tough to face your opponent 3 times in a season. It's very difficult. But the way the Steelers have looked in their last 4 games in their losing streak, I don't think that team has anything left in the tank to really show, to be honest. I mean, at least offensively, they just look so bad. And the Ravens are just in sparks. I mean, like Cam said, Lamar is balling. Like, he's literally having one of his best years ever. With the duo of Derrick Henry, Andrews leading the league in touchdowns for tight ends. Like, they're just too good right now for the Steelers. Unfortunately, it's plus on a 4-game skid, it's kind of hard to find yourself rebounding back unless they get this clutch win. I do think the Ravens will dominate this game.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about Mark Andrews is he started off quiet, and then just his
Very
second half
slow.
was great. And these other two games that they had were the first one was close. It was a rock fight, 18-16. Then the second game was only a couple weeks ago, 34-17. Ravens took care of business. Um, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm ready to pick the Steelers, but I would put this game on upset alert. And the reason why I'd put this game of any game on the road team upset alert is especially in the AFC is because the Steelers, albeit skidding, albeit not looking great, their last and losing to a lot of good teams down the stretch. They are familiar with Baltimore. Like Mike Tomlin has schemed up how to stop Lamar Jackson before, right? Like he's done it probably 15, 16 times at this point. Maybe less than that, maybe 10 or 12 times at this point in his career. So, I mean, it's not like the Steelers are going to be afraid of the situation. And Russell Wilson, I expect him to play. Like, it's not going to be Fields, right? I know there's always this thing like, right,
It'll be Russell.
I
You can't.
expect Russ to play. I know sometimes it's kind of like a bullpen in baseball. These guys, Mike Tomlin will change it on us. Um, but I expect to get Russell Wilson. You just need Russell Wilson for one game to not screw up. And it's going to be another 18, 15, 20, 17 game. So at that point in the playoffs, it's anybody's game. So that's where I'm at with that one. But I'd still probably pick the Ravens, but I put it on upset alert. I know that's sort of
Fair. No,
taking
that's
a cop
fair.
out there.
Yeah.
Who's next on the schedule?
We have Denver Broncos going to Buffalo for
Ooh.
Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock.
Um, I think we're all probably. I mean, I don't want to speak for you
Not
guys.
much to say here. I feel. I mean, I like Bo Nix, Sean Payton. Nice job. They got back in the playoffs. Is actually a very
Their
long
Very,
defense is
playoff drive.
good.
Snapped. Defense is nice. Nice group. Ahead of schedule. Buffalo wins this game by a lot. I mean,
I don't know if by a lot because Buffalo's defense isn't very good. Now, I don't think Bo Nix is going to be able to go in there and throw for 400 yards or something wild. I don't think that the weather's probably going to be terrible. And we've seen this movie before. A good head coach with a rookie quarterback who's older, first year gets by on their defense, goes to Buffalo in
doesn't go
wild card
well.
weekend and didn't go well. That's Mac Jones in his rookie year. For those of you wondering at home. So I've seen this movie before, and I sadly picked the Patriots to win that game 3 years ago,
Me
but
too.
I don't think you did, Cam.
My heart, I did.
In your heart, you did. But yeah, I mean, Kyle, what do you think? I don't know if they're going to win by a ton, but I still think Buffalo at home in the playoffs
I
against
think.
an inexperienced team.
I think it'll be a close game to start. I mean, everyone's going to be vibing off their energy's going to be high, playoffs, woo, excited. And then I think Buffalo's just going to take over. I think by like the second quarter, second half, they're just going to take over. Like the first quarter, I think will be close, but after the energy dies down, like I don't think they're going to be able to compete with Buffalo. They've got too many weapons offensively. I mean, they don't have to defensively do their best as long as they can hold them to some stops or field goals. I think Buffalo does their job.
All right. We want Kyle, we want to get to your Rams. So do we want to do the Rams in case Kyle has to bail?
In
And then
order,
Yeah,
time.
okay, all
we
right.
can do. So let's go right in order. Let's go. We have the Washington Commanders visiting Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's Sunday night, eight
All right.
o'clock.
Hit us with that one. Cam, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm really excited for this game. I have a couple of my buddies, Tanner and Slayer Shemsky, huge Washington fans. Fellas, shout out to you guys. You guys are back in the playoffs, and I think you'll get a playoff win. This will be the first lower seed to win. In my opinion, it's not an upset. I think Washington's the better football team. I think they're playing really high. I like this group. I could eat these words later. I'm going Washington's going to win this in a fun game.
Diesel, I'm writing this down. George Strait style.
It's going to be a great game, but I like the Bucks just because of the experience factor. And Baker Mayfield's having himself a hell of a year. I just think also their defense is still solid. I think they're underrated for how they play. They're not the best. They're not the worst. They're right in the middle. So they know how basically also stop the run. Very good run defense. But I think at the end, if you get Baker the ball, I think it's over.
All right. fire those cannons. Keep firing them. Just fire those cannons. Just keep firing them. I was right last year when I picked them to upset the Eagles. Um, and I think Baker, it's ironic how or coincidental, however you want to describe it, how the Buccaneers have rebuilt and won playoff games faster than the Patriots post Brady. I say that all the time. I like the Buccaneers in this game. They, I think the way they handled themselves under pressure with Baker, it almost feels like his confidence, to Kyle's point, is so much at a higher level than where it was early on in his career. Um, I think even when he was at college and he was throwing the flag at the middle, of the horseshoe and stuff, I just think that he's playing with some confidence. Some of the throws he made, the Buccaneers are a younger, faster team. This isn't the 2020 Bucks. I mean, they still have Mike Evans and Godwin. Um, Congrats to Mike Evans. But I think the Buccaneers. I think they're ready. They're ready to show that we're not just good because we play in a bad division. And look, Commanders' great story. I think it will be a close game, but give Mayfield the ball. I just hope the Buccaneers don't do stupid Buccaneers things like decide not to cover Cooper Cup and rob us of a Jimmy G versus Brady uh, title game, which would have been amazing cinema. But yeah, I hope they don't do anything dumb like that. But I like the Buccaneers in this game.
Boys, I made a mistake. I missed the Packers Eagles at 4:30. I
Okay,
apologize.
so who do we like
I missed
there?
that one. So this one I'm going to zag a little bit again. I like Green Bay here. I really do. I think Philly. I've been against Philly. I feel they shut me up this year. They performed very well. Don't get me wrong. But again, we're starting to see a little bit of those Philly cracks again. It's easy to point just to Hurts, right? And obviously, Hurts is going to be a warrior. He's going to play tough. But I still think that there's cracks in the armor with that offensive line and that group defense. I don't feel it 100%. And I do feel when head coaching does matter in the playoffs. I'm not a Sirianni fan. I do like Green Bay here. I think Green Bay is going to go in there and pull the upset, and it'll be the end of Sirianni. So that's a little bit of a bolder thing, but I've been on that since I saw the seedings.
Kyle, what about you? This game will mean a lot if the Rams move on. It will mean a lot to who the Rams play.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably one of the hardest games I've had to decide. I've been back and forth between the two. I'm only concerned because the Packers right now are just more injury prone right now, defensively and offensively, losing. I think they lost Watson, they lost Alexander for the rest of the year. A little concerned with that. But it's two run heavy offenses. So I'm wondering what's defense going to break first, pass wise. I think this will be a true test to see if Jalen Hurts is ready to step up to the challenge because I think Green Bay is going to take Saquon away the best they.
Mm-hmm.
If so, whoever throws the ball the best, either way, I think is who's going to win the game. And I do believe Cam's right. I do think that next year he is playing for his job. If he loses, he's out. But I just think the Eagles are slightly better. I think we'll still have a better contest. But whoever has the ball in the last drive, I think is going to win the game.
So you're going Eagles?
I'm going Eagles. But whoever has it is going to be the team that wins.
So I think the more likely scenario is that the Eagles squeak by and probably lose to the Buccaneers um, next week. But and I'm not a Jordan Love guy. I think it's a little bit of a fool's errand when you start comparing him to the other guys who have preceded him. And, so often everybody does this. Cowherd does this. Dan Patrick does this. Anybody you listen to will be like, well, they went from Favre to Rodgers and Rodgers to Love. Hold on a second. Love,
That's crazy.
yeah, that's wild. I mean, Love
Yeah.
is not those guys, and I think that's the only reason he gets so much air pumped in his tires is because of he plays for the Green Bay Packers. If he played for the Dallas would probably happen too. I'm just picking another team. If he played for
Indianapolis
the Titans,
Colts.
yeah,
Yeah.
nobody would say
Yeah.
the same thing. So I'm not a huge Jordan Love guy. Um, I think the Eagles will squeak this one out. I really do. They have not been playing great. They have seen cracks. They had what's his name playing quarterback for them the last couple weeks,
Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett,
Yep.
which was interesting. Maybe Hurts is rested, but we've seen Hurts go to, a Super Bowl, and we've seen him play and lead good teams before. Whether he's battling an injury or not, he's still capable of doing that. And Sirianni, the one thing I am worried about of picking Philadelphia in this game is it seems like he does one boneheaded thing every time. It used to be what Dan Campbell used to do.
It's
Like,
Sirianni now. It
yeah,
is.
it was
Yeah.
Dan Campbell used to do this like before the Lions were who they are now. And you're kind of looking like, really?
He's
And
yelling at fans. He's getting arguments with people. He's
he brought his
burnt. He's
kid up to the podium so that he wouldn't
weird.
get
Yeah.
criticized. Like it just
I,
seems like there's something off there. So I'm kind of with Kyle. If it might come down to who gets the ball last. It might. And speaking of that, this next game, the last game, it could very well be the same thing. It's been moved because of the wildfire situation, so we're hoping and praying that, everybody there can hopefully find some sort of comfort in their lives in this horrible situation, and hopefully, even if it's a very small amount, the Rams could provide that to some people in that part of the country. Um, Kyle and I had a chance to see the Rams in person this year. I think the Rams and the Vikings have both been underrated. We talked about them both at the start of the program. And, we're kind of finishing up with them here. Uh, what do you guys think about this game? I think this game is the hardest one to pick personally because
Diesel, you want to start with
yeah,
you want to start with
Diesel,
your
why
game,
don't you
brother?
start?
I'll leave it for you. I'll
Yeah.
leave it for you, brother.
I mean, last time earlier they played this season. I mean, we're the team that derailed the Vikings. So I mean, we had successes previous year showing Sam Donald's failures. But if you're looking at going into momentum carrying, I think the Rams are the team that had the momentum going forward. And as you said, they're both very underrated teams. With that being said, I think Sean McVay brings in the aspect of having that veterancy of been there, done that with a veteran quarterback with Matthew Stafford. I think they get it done down in Minnesota. I'm also not sure if Sam Donald's last performance last week is going to rear its ugly head again and do it again, or is the lights too bright for him, or what? We've talked about him not showing up when the lights are bright, and this is the brightest moment. I think this is a make or break for a contract deal for him itself, and if he can't do it, I think that's it. But I give it on the Rams.
So I'm just going to point back to a few years ago. The Vikings were a 3 seed, and the New York Football Giants were a 6 seed. I picked against the Vikings that year. They had a great regular season, and they went ahead and blew it. They're going to do it again. The Rams are a battle tested group that's playing really hot, and they're really playing with house money. The Vikings, again, it's funny for me to say I picked this group to be terrible. I said one of the worst football teams in the league. Obviously, it hasn't happened. Expectations have risen exponentially with that group. Darnold's playing for his NFL career. He's playing for a big contract. Kevin O'Connell's coaching for a lot here. If he ends up going out one and done in this playoff run, it'll look very poor for him, in my opinion. With all that being said, I'm going with the battle-tested group, giving the Rams here in a higher scoring, competitive, fun game.
Okay. I'm I'm torn here. Um, it's hard to consider the Vikings an underdog when they had 14 wins. And a lot's going to be made of, oh, why are they going on the road and this and that and I understand those concerns. I'm I was very critical of Sam Darnold in this program in September. I said he was going to be a train wreck. I thought they were going to be at the bottom of their division. I'm wondering what kind of motivation they have. Because they went from being, if we win this game against the Lions, we're not playing in 2 weeks and we won't have to go on the road again, to now we have to go on the road 3 times to make the Super Bowl rather than host 2 games to win the Super Bowl. And the home field advantage in Minnesota is incredible. And now they have to go on the road 3 times. So I'm wondering, they've got to be super motivated. And Sam Darnold knows all those things that you guys talked about. Kevin O'Connell, I slightly disagree. I think he's going to stay where he is, win or lose. I want to pick the Rams because I think I had the Rams making that NFC title game from the beginning of the year. And so I'm going to dance with the girl I brought to the prom, right? And I'm going to pick the Rams in this game because of that. And I'm going to stick to my guns and not overreact. But the Vikings showed something this year, and they showed that like you can, like the Chiefs, you can win a lot of close games, and you can get a lot out of underperforming units, and skill players do win. They have a lot of skill players: Hawkinson, Jefferson, of course, Jordan Addison, Sam Darnold. I think is will be able to provide for his family, being a backup QB probably for the rest of his career. But he wants a big deal. Um, I don't think he's going to be a starter for 5 to 10 years. I think this was a good story. I was wrong about him. He had a good year. But I have to pick the Rams because that's the pick I made for the beginning of the year. And since Stafford joined the team, I've always been high on the Rams. And I saw them play this year, and they look like a team that can. Kyle knows this better than anyone. Can beat you in multiple ways. And in Minnesota, I would not be surprised if Minnesota wins this game. But it's played at a neutral site now, technically. And still a dome, still a controlled weather environment, which both teams are used to. And I think it could go either way. I think it's a great cap on Wild Card Weekend. Um, so the only disagreements we had, boys, was Ram. We all had the Rams, we all had the Bills, we all had the Ravens, we all had the Chargers. But Diesel and I had the same picks across the board, except Cam picked Packers over Eagles and Commanders over Buccaneers. I know Kyle's got to get out of here. So, Kyle, I'm going to let you go first. Who wins the Super Bowl? Who makes the conference title games and why?
Oh gosh. I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with my loyal Rams here. Greatest comeback story ever this year if they make it all the way to Super Bowl and they win it. For the title games, actually, I have them playing the Bills in the Super Bowl.
You had Rams and Chiefs to begin the year, but now you have Rams and Bills now.
I'm going off. I'm being confident.
Okay. That would be a fun Super Bowl.
I think it's a better storyline.
Good coaches.
So I'm going Rams versus Buccaneers in the NFC, and then I'm going to go with, as we talked about before, Chiefs, Bills. Josh Allen gets it. He takes the next step forward.
Okay. You'd then have the Buccaneers beating the Eagles in the divisional round, and then the Lions losing to the Rams. Okay. Yep. Cam, what about you?
So Super Bowl, I have Detroit's going to win the NFC in my opinion, and I do believe that this is the year. I believe the Baltimore Ravens will win the AFC and get over the hump. Baltimore will go through Buffalo and go through Kansas City. Even though I said all these great things about Spagnuolo, I love their defensive unit in Kansas City still, but I think Lamar is playing at the highest level. The Ravens are a really together group. I like that group quite a bit. However, with all that being said, I do think it's time. It will happen. To me, the best team in the NFL this year has been the Detroit Lions. I think everything comes together, and the great state of Michigan is going to get their Super Bowl title this year. That's where I'm going. They were very close. They took all that pain from last year, and they're going to get over the hump and win it all.
All right. I like it. I like it. Those are good picks. All right, boys. Here's mine. So at the beginning of the year, I picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, and I thought they were going to host the Chargers in the AFC title game. That mathematically could happen, but for that to happen, Pittsburgh has to beat Baltimore for that to happen mathematically. Unfortunately, the seeding didn't work out with me. More the more likely scenario is that they play in the divisional round, and for that I'm gonna again dance with the girl I took and bring and have Chiefs Bills what everyone wants at Arrowhead um, in 3 weeks, and I think the Chiefs again, unfortunately for all of us, I think they're gonna go back there, and I think this time they're going to play. They are going to play. Uh, do I want to call my shot? I'm scared. Do I call my shot? I think I'm gonna call my shot. Fire those cannons. Just keep.
Wow. Wow.
No, I think I'm with Kyle. I think the Buccaneers and Rams in the title game. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just no. I don't know. Should I call it? Should I do that? Should I go
You
on the
already
record?
said it.
Or he called it.
You can't
Yeah, I
put
mean,
toothpaste in
look,
the tube,
what the
man.
Super Bowl I want. Let me say it this way: for a good show, I'll stick with it. I like I said, Buccaneers and Chiefs would be a fun Super Bowl again. We had that with Chiefs. We had a rematch of 2020 last year with Niners and Chiefs. Now we have a 2021 with those guys. Um, but for a good show, it makes for a good show. What I want as a fan is give me the Bills and the Lions. Give me two franchises that haven't, and I'm a Pats fan, right? I don't want the Bills anywhere near the Super Bowl. I don't want the Chiefs anywhere there, near the Super Bowl. But for as a sports fan, it would be pretty cool to see what two franchises who have never won a Super Bowl. The Lions have never been there, and the Bills are 0-4 to see them in the Super Bowl with one fan base getting rewarded and one fan base getting their heart ripped out, that would be amazing television. Plus, those are likable teams. I like Jared Goff. I'm sure you still like Jared Goff to an extent, Kyle. Josh Allen, he beats us. He's a good dude. Um, you know, but I guess before we let you go, and then Cam, I want to talk to you about Pats. Kyle's welcome to stick around, but um, the the situation with the MVP. Um, should it be Allen or should it be Lamar?
Yeah, it's a tough question. Very tough question. I mean, Lamar's had probably the best year he's ever had so far, stats wise. But he's probably, to be honest, I think he's going to get it. But I really think Josh Allen deserves it because take Josh Allen off that Bills team, I don't think they make the playoffs. You take Lamar off that Ravens team, I still think they make the playoffs and win that division.
Uh,
Mm,
uh,
interesting.
Lost me on the end
So,
there.
no, well, okay, the AFC East was bad. All right, we're Pats fans,
No,
Cam. You have
he's saying Lamar would they'd make the playoffs without Lamar. I don't know, but they would win the division without Lamar in the AFC North. I don't know about that. I
so
don't
the
know about
AFC
that one.
East is bad. I
They are.
actually I would say if you take Allen out of the
He's my MVP. Josh Allen's my MVP. So that's where I'm
Well,
going. I
right.
think he's the
So
yeah.
here's the deal.
give it to him.
I sound like Biden. Here's the deal. Look, here's the deal. Um, sorry. I
Uh,
lost my train of thought. So here's the deal. The Bills would win the AFC. We were all wrong about the Bills. They were a playoff team, and part of that is, did they have a single Pro Bowler or All Pro on that roster?
I don't think so.
Right. So if you're
I don't.
truly saying the most valuable player, Allen was the team this year for all intents and purposes. Now, Lamar Jackson, to Diesel's point, had an incredible statistical year. And that division was much better than the AFC East. I mean, the Steelers, you guys had the Browns in the playoffs. You guys thought they were going to be good. I didn't pick on you for that, but I will now. The Bengals should have been a playoff team if they had beaten us in week one. And the Steelers were pretty good for most of the year. So like Lamar had his hands full and had a great statistical year, and to me Lamar Jackson's the MVP. But I mean, there's a solid case to be made for Josh Allen because I mean, he was the team this year. There was no Mark Andrews and no, Derrick Henry for the
The
Buffalo
rushing
Bills.
the rushing impact too. I know Lamar rushes, but the rushing impact for Allen
Yeah,
short yardage goal line too is can't be understated.
yeah. Who did we all pick at the beginning of the year? I can't remember. Some of you
I
guys
had
picked
Stroud.
Stroud.
I think I had Stroud personally. I think I said Stroud or Burrow was one of those two.
I think I might have said Herbert, but they don't throw enough.
You did say Herbert. I remember you went a little different with yours.
Yeah, I mean Baker's had a good year. This is the problem with the
Yeah.
Buccaneers, and I'm locked in. But the problem with them all year, and probably why Baker didn't get more consideration, is because they had a couple random bad losses. But they also had some games where they dominated, like the Eagles, and they like played really well against
Beat
a
Detroit.
lot.
You know, they beat Detroit this year as
Right.
well. The Buccaneers. So
So
yeah,
they had some they played up to their competition, but you know, the other candidates possibly people talked about Burrow, but if you don't make the playoffs, how valuable are you? Not. There was really no one else that really bubbled to the surface. Saquon, people were talking about, but that we've talked about that before. Um, it doesn't really happen. Jamar Chase won the Triple Crown, but we again that doesn't really happen. Um, any last thoughts, guys? Then Cam, I want to pick your brain on Mayo and the Pats. Kyle, do you have any last thoughts on the playoffs?
Nah, nothing really. I mean, I'm excited to see how it all turns out. I mean, I'd honestly love to see the Chiefs lose. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, be
Uh,
amazing.
but I also still think I hate saying it, but I do think it's 2v1. I do think slightly. The officials have favored a little bit more the Chiefs this year than other teams.
we almost made it the whole show without saying some of the officials.
Is it's bound to come up. I've watched film, and it's just I don't know, man. I
The
just
egregious one was the Raider game. That was the worst one. The other ones are just, again, as we've always said, they make it gray enough where they can decide in the moment. I don't think it's
correct.
rigged ahead of time.
I'm
They
not saying
just,
rigged. I'm not saying that
yeah,
like, that circumstance, but I think a lot of things went their way instead of letting it play out.
yeah.
But
Cam, Cam, do you have any playoff thoughts? And it's probably, unfortunately, going to come down to a call for somebody somewhere in one
I
of
think
these.
there's a lot of fun storylines, Will,
Yeah.
about can Lamar and the Ravens get over their playoff woes, right? Who's going to get over the hump? Is Josh Allen going to get over the hump? Is it Lamar? Is there going to be a surprise team? Is it going to be the Commanders or or somebody that's going to be ahead of schedule? Perhaps Denver, Green Bay. I picked. It's fun to think about all the possibilities and the storylines that can be written about some teams being ahead of schedule and some teams that still cannot get over the hump. So I'm excited to see how things play out and who makes plays. When to go and get like who makes plays in the playoffs. This is where legacies and Hall of Fame cases and paychecks are decided. So I'm excited about that.
I am too. I am too, for sure. It's going to be a fun time. What's not a fun time is being a Pats fan. And Kyle, if you have to duck, that's fine. I appreciate you making time for us. Are you saluting? All right, thank you.
and
Godspeed, brother.
best of
Thank
luck on
you.
the rebuild.
I didn't catch that.
The best of luck on the rebuild.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, we'll dive into that. All right, yeah. Enjoy losing to the Vikings. Just kidding. I don't know. We'll see. Um, so so Cam, once been the last 10 minutes of the show here. Um, Diving in Pats fan to Pats fan because I haven't had a chance to do this on the pod with anyone yet. What's going on? Like, was Mayo scapegoated? Was he a problem? Should they have given him another year? What's going on with the draft pick? Was that a good idea or a bad idea? Who are we going to draft? Or is it going to inhibit us? Talk some Patriots fans off the ledge because they might not be listening to
Right.
me.
Right. Well, to me, it starts with Mayo, and it's something I said to you off camera, Will. If you told the Crafts that we'd be 4-13 after the year, that's probably in the ballpark of what this roster should have got, right? 4-6, maybe 7 wins in a perfect scenario. It really wasn't about the win total for me. It was about how we got there. The embarrassing loss to the Chargers, the lack of disciplined football play. You know, Gerard Mayo is obviously a defensive coach, and our defense got worse throughout the year. That's a really bad sign. I saw a man that, to me, Gerard Mayo was a solid to great player, great leader, a great assistant coach, rose up the ranks too quickly, in my opinion, and was not ready for this job. He was not ready for this job. He was not properly prepared for it by the franchise, by his mentors, and by himself. He did not handle the media the right way. He made a lot of gaffes, a lot of excuses, very anti-Patriots last 25 years, right? Just right, a lot of issues. So moving on from Gerard was the right decision. We wish him the best, getting another job somewhere else, maybe on defensive staff. In terms of the Patriots group, a lot of people were mad about, the Patriots winning that game against Buffalo. And to me and Will, we've discussed this too. If I'm Joe Milton III, I'm trying to get a contract, man. I'm trying to make some money. These players that are playing week 18, they're not benefiting off the Patriots getting the one pick. These guys have families and careers. They've been busting it out for the last 20 years of their lives to try to make this happen. So for us to be mad, our fans to be mad about winning a game, I feel like you can't win sometimes, right? I don't mind them. I prefer them trying to win the game. We've won a game in 2 months. So it creates a culture of winning. Think about all these great teams that tank, or excuse me, all these teams that tank, and what happens to them? They're picking top 5 again in the next 2 years, 3 years. So with this weaker draft class and everything else that plays into it, I didn't have a problem with that. I would love to see the Patriots actually focus on protecting Drake May with some NFL starting offensive linemen and maybe a receiver that could create an ounce of separation. Can we start with that before we do anything else? We have the quarterback, Will. I like Drake May. I thought he played really well for what he was given. I was scared when they put him in there. I was hoping he didn't play all year, and he almost got killed doing it. But I like what I
Twice.
saw. I like what he put on film. They tried to kill the kid. I like what he put on film. He actually surprised me with a lot of things going against him. A poor offensive coordinator, a terrible offensive line, and
Yep. I
maybe the
thought
worst skill group in the league.
yeah. I thought
Yes,
his
go ahead.
decision making was pretty good,
Better than you think. Yeah,
throughout the year. I mean, you go back and you look at some of these games. They had home game, Seahawks could have won that game. That's one win that they could have had. They had the
Colts game.
Dolphins. They were only lost by 5 at home. They probably should have won that game the way they were playing. They had that Titans overtime win. They had the Rams game, which they could have won if they had not played poorly. The Colts game, they definitely could have won. So now we're talking
Totally.
about 4 or 5 games
Now we're
where
8-9 football team.
where if you flip those, I mean, they're like an eight and you know, and it's that execution, it's that coaching, it's that nuance that I don't think Mayo really met the bar for. I like Mayo. I think he'd be a great dude to hang out with, nice guy.
Agree.
I told my cousin over Christmas, it seemed like he wasn't up to the task of,
A nice defensive assistant coach, Will. Maybe a
right.
defensive coordinator in this league. Maybe.
And
We
maybe
don't know.
maybe a head coach on a team that's set up to win.
Sure.
Like if this team, if he had taken over the job in like 2010, or sorry, 2019, like let's say Brady and Bill, that we win the Super Bowl against the Rams. All right, we're going off in the sunset. That team's pretty good. We install, free agent quarterback in place of that roster, and you still got Edelman. Maybe you have Gronk. If he sticks around, and then you
He's
got it. Good defense still. The McCourties are there.
some
Whatever
leadership.
leadership, Hightower, maybe he's still there. And now Mayo was leading that as a really young head coach. You
I could
might have
see it.
seen something different, but instead he came over and I think the Crafts kind of set him up to fail a little bit by giving him a poor roster, and this Elliot Wolf character is being completely let off the hook. Um,
Yeah.
so
How does he
that's
have
what
a job
concerns
after
me. As far as the should we have tanked or there I agree with everything you said about them. These guys are pros and they're going to try and win. What frustrates me is the fans who most of us aren't alive to remember when they drafted Bledsoe #1 overall in '94 or '93. We're not old enough to remember that. So it's something new to us. So I think a lot of fans our age were just excited to experience something new. And it's like, guys, what you need to understand is that the NFL draft, as much as the NFL is a what have you done for me lately kind of business, the NFL draft is about addressing like immediate needs. Okay, that's what the NFL is about. What are you going to do for me next year? It's
Right.
not about, oh, well, if we trade down this pick and we have the number one overall pick, we can hold a king's ransom. That would have been great. I actually would have been fine with that had it happened organically. But using that and thinking that that singular aspect is going to be a cure for the years long decline of the Patriots is naive.
Asinine.
There's way more involved with in rebuilding this football team than getting the number one draft pick one time. Because the Jaguars drafted Lawrence number one overall in 21. They had a bad year, much like the Patriots did in 22. They drafted number one overall again, and that guy Travon Walker, I think is
Edge,
his name.
yeah, that edge rusher. He
Yeah,
ended up being a bust.
he's not really that good, and the guys drafted after him are like Aiden Hutchinson and all these other good defensive players. It's like, well, they didn't even get that right. And
Right.
much like this draft, that draft was not quarterback heavy, so there was nobody for them to trade with. They
So
already had Lawrence.
right.
If they wanted to, they could have done what everyone's saying the Patriots should do and trade down. They didn't do that, and they drafted the wrong guy. So it's like I would much
If we
rather
have
the
one pick,
Patriots.
Will, we're gonna draft Shador Sanders or Cam Ward.
No,
Like,
There-
seriously,
Travis
that's who it's
Hunter
gonna be.
and Travis Hunter, if he didn't play for Colorado and wasn't getting
Not
the
the Heisman winner, in my
exposure,
opinion, but I won't go there either. I agree with you already.
I
To
mean,
me, Ashton Genty was the Heisman winner to me this year. Nobody on God's earth can tell me differently. But
yeah, I
yeah,
mean, think about that guy. He played in a bad conference, but I don't know. The numbers, there was no clear Heisman winner this year. So, like,
no.
Travis Hunter won the Heisman. Great, I guess.
I guess
It's like,
snap was a stat now for the Heisman. Oh, I was very sour about that. The most
so,
snaps played. I mean, come on, really?
and
Like,
and also this draft class, all year long, I heard we need a tackle, we need a tackle, we need a tackle.
where is
Great,
that
get a
number one franchise tackle in this draft? I don't see it.
right. But the point is that
Yeah.
don't say all year we need a tackle, we need a tackle, we need a tackle, and then say, oh, well, we won't be able to draft Travis Hunter one overall now. It's like, guys, I
Right.
thought we all year long we were saying we need a
We
tackle.
don't need Cam Ward. We don't need Shador. Like, we don't need take your pick, Quinn Ewers, if he's declaring whoever it is, because some team is going to pick. The Titans
You
are going to
could
take.
still trade down if if
Could.
if like the Browns or the Titans don't pick a quarterback and they need one, and you've got the Jets and the Raiders behind you, you could trade that pick.
Yes, we have our quarterback. I like May. They got that right. I think. I can't believe
Yeah,
I'm saying they got something right. They got that right with him. It's early, but I like what I see on film.
yeah,
Will, I can honestly say we've had the worst skill group for 3 years now. Can we make any effort to get that title away from us? I haven't been
yeah,
excited about a receiver in years. Seriously. They've all
yeah.
been god awful. Awful.
Polk,
Terrible. We have the worst offensive line of
yeah,
football and the worst skill group
yeah.
by far. The best offensive player is Hunter Henry skill wise.
And
I
Hunter
like Hunter.
Henry isn't getting
I
any
like
faster or younger,
no.
unfortunately.
He's not getting any more shifty. I like him as a number 2 tight end. He's a nice little player. But that's your number 1 receiver? God help me.
Yeah, and
Please
the
don't give
the
me
issue
Henry.
is like I think Booty had a good year. I think
Yeah,
and I think Douglas had a good year, but that they would be
for
amazing
what it
as year
was.
3 and year 4.
Right, but for what they are. For
Yeah,
what they are, they did pretty good. They had a nice performance. Or Stevenson fell off a cliff. I know it's kind of random, but Stevenson, my good lord, he looked like me running the football out there, like Fumblerooski. My
yeah,
goodness, it was ugly.
it
It
was.
won't matter if we don't have the offensive line and skill group addressed.
No, and that goes back to my point. All year long, I heard we need to tackle, we need to tackle, we need to tackle,
Never
and
worried
then
about Travis Hunter.
and now
Like,
everyone's worried about Travis Hunter or this McMillan guy from Arizona. It's like, guys,
he's fast or whatever, right? And I'm
this
like,
draft is
yeah,
won in the second and third round. This draft because
right, you know,
it's not a top heavy draft
not at
like
all.
last year, the year before, or even 2021. But like the Patriots are going to be able to get a player of need at 4 and at 36 or wherever they're drafting. And it's just a and in free agency you have a lot of cap space.
To go get that tackle, to go get that receiver,
Yeah, and
whoever
T
it may
Higgins
be.
isn't going to be a cure-all either. I would much
But he'd
rather
be
have
nice.
Godwin, to be honest. I think he's going to cost
Or
less.
I would like to have T. Higgins. Will, I mean, it would give us something. I
Yeah,
mean,
T
but
Higgins, I think would get people would think that would solve everything. I don't think it would solve everything.
a great start to the problem.
It would
Not
be yes, it would help.
yes.
I don't think it would cure the problem.
No, you still
You
need
know?
tackles. You need
Yeah.
five. You need really four. If Andrews comes back, I like David Andrews still, but you need four starting linemen to be
And well,
very blunt.
Andrews he's injury prone at this point in
I
his
know he
career.
may be
And
done. I'm being generous on the four. You really need at least four linemen.
well, I
Honestly,
don't hate Nwenu if he's in position. Problem is they played him out of position because everyone else is terrible. And that
I'd
Ben
have to
Brown guy was
desperation.
okay, but you really need a guy who's been a center. You need Cole Strange to
Yes,
either play his position or learn how to be a center. And Andrews did the same thing. Andrews, when he played, was not a center at
he was
first.
a guard, I
Uh,
believe, at the beginning.
yeah, I
I
believe
think.
he was a guard, and then Ryan Wendell or Brian Stork was the center,
Yes,
and then Andrews became a center. If Cole
and became
Strange
a
can
Pro
do that
Bowler.
for you, great.
Yeah.
If not, I don't know what's going on.
And I'll just say one thing we didn't touch on: the head coaching situation. To me, there's one name. It's Mike Vrabel. I think you satisfy the Rooney Rule. You bring some guys in. I understand that, but this is perfect. Mike Vrabel is going to bring discipline to this football team. He's invested in the Patriots. It matters to him. He brought the Tennessee Titans to the AFC title game. Good Lord. Are you kidding me? I would love to have somebody with that kind of leadership and toughness. This team needs toughness and leadership and accountability, right? I mean, there's just no leadership right now. It's like a dystopian novel with our franchise, the way it's been. We've been spoiled over the years with Bill and Tom. And not just them, with Julian Edelman, Robert Gronkowski, defensive leadership from Hightower, the McCourty, Devin McCourty being there. We've had a lot of great leaders. They're just not there. So to
Yeah.
have a head coach to set that tone would be great. So just want to make that point too. I'd love to, Mike, come on down, dude. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, I'm thinking everyone's really jazzed up about Ben Johnson. I don't think replacing a rookie head coach with another rookie head coach is
Any
good.
experienced guy that can weather the storm, that can bring some credibility back to that locker room. I think guys are going to respect Vrabel. I don't think Ben Johnson's going to leave the Lions. Really, I don't, unless they
I
win the Super
wouldn't.
Bowl.
I wouldn't if I'm him, I hold out for next year.
I don't think he's leaving personally. Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, just denied the interview with the Patriots actually
Oh,
today.
okay.
Yeah, Aaron Glenn denied the request. So Ben Johnson interviewed with them today, I believe, this morning, according to what I read. Ben Johnson's got 4 interviews. He was in
And
New England this
okay.
morning.
Who's
Yeah,
interviewing him? Is it Jonathan
Chicago.
Kraft,
Who's actually doing it? Probably Elliot Wolf and
Elliot
Jonathan
Wolf,
Kraft.
and Jonathan Kraft? Like if I'm Ben Johnson, I'm like, guys,
I'm laughing you out of the building, man. I want to talk to some. I
Vrabel
want
at
to talk to
least knows them, so it's like, or
with a grain of salt. He can take it with a grain of salt. He knows the Kraft family. He played for
yeah.
the Kraft family. Like, I mean, and Ben. I mean, and with Ben, I just feel like this may sound. If he doesn't go to Chicago, I think he'll stay in
Yeah, I could see him
Detroit
going to Chicago.
with a young quarterback.
Right.
Um,
I hold out, maybe hold out for next year,
what
possibly.
about and Will? I'll say Pete Carroll's been a name I've heard for the Patriots recently too. I don't know how I feel about that. I think Pete's 73 years old.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
good. I'm good.
we already tried that here. We already tried that here once.
Yeah, I'll pass on
Didn't go
Pete
well.
Carroll.
I'm just saying some names that have come up. Those names have come up quite a bit. You know, I'd like to have somebody with some experience and credibility. I feel like you're not moving on from Mayo if you don't have an idea of who you're going for. But maybe I'm giving the Patriots too much credit because we don't
Yeah.
think like that anymore. We don't have that kind of planning. We just kind of go off the seat of our pants, which is just so anti-patriot.
It is
And honestly,
frustrating.
if we have Vrabel, need a great offensive coordinator. It's time to hire a true offensive coordinator instead of dancing around with this foolishness of not having titles and.
Well, we've got an AVP, and I do think you have to tread carefully on the offensive side of the ball because of Drake May's development. I think that was a huge disaster in Mac Jones's career was bringing in
Killed.
Patricia and that whole situation.
Oh, just completely stumped him. The most important year, right? Your sophomore year as a quarterback, just destroyed
So
it.
I
Yeah,
would hope that they keep Van Pelt around, even if they demote him to quarterbacks
he
coach.
got fired. He got fired already.
He
He's
he
been fired. He's been
he's
fired. He was
been
fired.
fired. I read
I thought he was. I don't want to misspeak on the show, but I'm pretty sure I read that he was already terminated.
so no wait is 1 day
Yeah.
ago Ben Volen. Per league source, offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt walked out of Gillette Stadium shortly before 5 p.m. on Sunday and told friends in the parking lot that he and Mayo had just been fired. But that's Ben Volin, and I thought he was wrong about that.
Okay, so some things to be decided there. I guess it's getting messy, but
Yeah, it is getting messy. Sorry about that.
regardless, there an overhaul of the staff's needed. Regardless, I mean I think that's not really a groundbreaking statement.
Yes.
It
Yes.
didn't work out this year. Just
It did
call
not
it.
work out, but I want them to be careful with Drake May's development, is all.
It
And
needs to be
so,
the right guys. It
so are
needs to
you,
be the right.
yeah. So to put a bow on this, you're calling Vrabel to the Pats.
I'm very hopeful.
All
That's
right.
the
And,
higher
and are
market.
we trading the pick or are we picking somebody at 4?
They're going to take Will Campbell from LSU, I believe, the tackle. I do believe they're going to take him.
I could see
That's
them taking him, Abdul Carter,
yeah,
or
the rusher. Yeah,
or Tet McMillan.
I personally hope it's Campbell.
Yes.
I do. I think that's the biggest need and the best player. If you don't trade it, they could. I'm not against trading the pick either if you get the right things.
Okay.
My opinion: get Campbell or trade. That's where
All
I'd like to see it happen. I think you'll see Shador go 1 and Cam Ward probably go 2. Uh, You know,
right. Yeah, probably Travis Hunter,
probably probably Travis Hunter 3. I really believe
and
it's going to happen.
and it might depend on what happens in free agency too with quarterbacks.
And maybe a team makes the move. I don't want to. I mean, we got a long way to go, but
Yeah, the draft is an eternity from
I mean,
now.
Tennessee needs a quarterback. I mean, there's no ifs ands or buts about that. They're gonna go. They're
Cleveland,
gonna pick
yeah,
Cleveland. They're gonna. I mean, Tennessee's gonna pick their quarterback. They're gonna pick. They're gonna pick who they believe's the guy. I don't think there is a guy in this class. I think I say that. I didn't like what I saw from Cam Ward on film this year.
and I think it should have been Quinn Ewers, but he got hurt and he wasn't
And he
as
might stay in
dynamic.
college. He might stay in college
Yo,
another
he's
year.
not gonna stay with the Longhorns, but he might go
No,
somewhere else.
he's gone. He'll be in either Oregon or somewhere like that. I believe personally. I think
Or
he'll transfer.
possibly Notre Dame.
Oh yeah, good one. Texas Tech's been a name too with a lot of NIL money. Another one.
I could see him
Uh,
going to if Nico
perhaps
leave.
Miami.
We're going off topic, but it's fine. If
Yeah,
Nico leaves
yeah,
Tennessee, I could see him going to Tennessee.
yeah. He will not be back
No,
with
no,
Texas next year. Quit. Excuse me. Arch Manning will be the starter
yeah.
for
Well,
sure.
boys,
So
that's all I had. If you
that's
have
what I
any,
have.
if you have anything dire that you want to add,
I'm just hoping that we just get back to being competent. Let's take a
yes,
deep breath. Let's not be complacent. Let's start addressing problems without arrogance that we're the Patriots. Let's
agreed.
address problems. Let's take a deep breath and get it right, not rush it. Please. We
I
have a
know.
quarterback. Let's get the coach, get the tackle, spend some money, make some smart picks, take a deep breath. Let's get back on track, guys.
I agree. I'm with
Yeah.
you. You got to get back on track. You got to get the boat going in the right direction. And if
Amen.
you guys, as the listeners, want to get the boat going in the right direction, you can like, share, subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Follow us on Instagram if you care to. We'll be back to break it all down at some point in the future. But thank you all for listening. Enjoy that football later today and on Sunday.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you.